When it comes to UFOs, U.S. officials are typically tight-lipped. But that is changing. Covert Pentagon task force established in 2007 and charged with collecting and analyzing encounters with what are now known as unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP. After 3 videos were leaked and posted online, the Pentagon confirmed in 2020 that they are authentic recordings made by Navy personnel. The disclosure has officials at the highest levels of government treating UFOs with a new urgency and openness, including a former president.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory.
The Pentagon is expected to issue a report soon, providing Congress and the public with an analysis of UFO data from multiple government agencies. It's been 70 years since the Pentagon opened its first UFO study. In recent decades, there has been little official acknowledgement of the phenomenon, though sightings have continued. These cases are often researched by citizen groups. One of the most prominent incidents took place off the coast of California. A U.S. aircraft carrier's radar began to pick up multiple craft moving in unusual ways. 2 F-18 jets were sent to investigate. Both pilots and their crewmates described a 5-minute encounter with a cylindrical craft that one described as not behaving within the normal laws of physics. After the craft abruptly disappeared, it reappeared on radar 60 miles away, where a third pilot made this recording. Determining if such objects pose a threat is the report's mandate, but some observers hope the study will go even further in search of answers.
I believe that we're moving towards something. I think our society is changing. It has been changing dramatically over the past number of decades, and that won't stop. I don't believe that there will be a voluntary government disclosure of UFOs unless and until they are pushed to the wall by some extreme event.
Something happens.
A leak, a sighting, something that's not foreseen. Otherwise, no, I'm not seeing it as very likely. The only possibility that I could envision along a voluntary line would be maybe in a couple of decades, if the government, let's say there's a kind of a confidence that the U.S. government has, or some other government, global government has, that they could release this and then control the spin, control the narrative. Right. If they felt that they could do that, maybe they would. I don't think that anyone's in that position yet, even the U.S. government, which is the master of spin. I don't think that they're in a position to control the narrative completely yet, so I don't think that they're willing to do it. I think that we are being visited, or whether by visitors or by long-term occupants, whoever they are. I think that there's another intelligence that is behind at least the core element of the UFO phenomenon, and they're not us. They're not our civilization. So I think that there are clandestine programs to study acquired non-human technology, let's call it UFO crash retrievals.
Sure.
I think that those exist. I think that there are programs to study non-human physiology and biology, that is, let's say, alien bodies. I think those do exist. I realize I don't have proof, but I will say that there's actually a surprisingly large body of testimony over the decades that lead to that conclusion. What I do believe, though, strongly, is that governments of the world, most predominantly the United States government, but also many other governments, have encounters with these objects. Mm-hmm. They are important, they are unexplainable in a conventional way, and that there is secrecy relating to this. And as far as I can see, that the policy is to continue with that secrecy as long as possible.
In our Out of This World lead today, the U.S. government knows something unexplained is out there, and next month we may get answers. The Pentagon has until late June to tell Congress in an unclassified report what it knows about unidentified flying objects.
We're aware of the report requirement, and our team at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence is, of course, actively working on that report. And we take reports of incursions into our airspace by any aircraft, identified or unidentified, very seriously, and investigate each one. But ODNI would be working on that report, and in terms of disclosure, that would be up to them.
Disclosure Project press conference, that was all Stephen Greer. I was not formally part of that. I helped a little bit on the side, but that was Stephen Greer's project, and it was a significant event. I was there, 15 witnesses plus Dr. Greer presented to a huge audience in the ballroom of the National Press Club. Cameras line the entire back area, many countries represented. Every member or every witness that testified ended their testimony by saying, and I'd be happy to repeat this in front of in a congressional committee under oath. A tape of the other 75 witnesses was delivered to ABC News and Ted Koppel, and so forth and so forth. And I was very optimistic. I was very pumped up. I was excited. Unfortunately, the attack on the country that came on September 11th pretty much made it very difficult to make much more progress for a while. It has to happen through congressional hearings. And there have been numerous attempts to get congressional hearings all the way back to Keogh in the early 1950s in NICAP. They tried over and over again to get hearings, couldn't get them. More efforts are tried, couldn't get them. What we finally got is 2 one-day hearings, 1966, 1968, 4 or 5 witnesses each time, and it was done and over. They were not serious. But this is not all happening independently. In other words, one thing is making it possible for something else to happen. And you're going to see more of that. The journalists are starting to pile on. More people are coming out. Witnesses are coming forward. Since then, there have been other efforts to get them. The 2001 press conference that the Disclosure Project put on was part of an effort to get congressional hearings.
That's right.
It didn't, well, and 911 probably ended that prospect. But there's something else that's very important. And this is where things get tricky, and this is what's causing so much controversy. And it's the issue of alien or extraterrestrial threat.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects.
Looking at all these journalists and all the cameras, and I was listening to what was being disclosed, and I couldn't imagine how this could not have been a world-changing event. I mean, change everything. But at the time, I didn't even know what Operation Mockingbird was. So I told him, I'm not doing this interview unless you guarantee that I can say we have the scientists within these unacknowledged special access programs that can prove before an open congressional hearing that we have zero-point energy. We can prove that it's working, and it could alleviate the need for nuclear oil and coal. They promised up and down, interviewed me for about 45 minutes. Afterward, the producer was kind of almost in tears. She said, I know I promised, but the higher executives made me cut that part out. And as I researched back, back through history, I found out what the higher executives were all about and why they would omit something that could help all of humanity. Call me naive at the time in 2001. I was looking at the credentials of the other witnesses and their background. Captains in the Air Force, people with high-level top secret security clearances.
Right.
I didn't expect it at all. It actually, it took me aback. I remember after going at the National Press Club, we went on Capitol Hill with about 24 senators and congresspeople. We'd meet in their offices. We brought along a 500-page briefing document and 4 hours of executive briefing of witness testimonies, one after another, explosive testimony. David Adair, I think I was replacing his testimony. There was 20 of us. All of us stated after we gave our testimony before the 22 cameras of the mainstream media of the world that we are willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing that we were seeking. This is, penalty of perjury, breaking national security oaths, The thing is besides the 20 that were there at the press club, we were backed by over 500 military intelligence witnesses. Now there's far more than that. So, I'm looking at the report that came out today, June 25th, and, it's a lot different than what was disclosed back then 20 years ago, where they're just saying, we have no idea what these are, that, it could possibly be adversaries, China, Russia, or extraterrestrial, or, atmospheric
phenomena. If you'd like to repeat after me. I do hereby affirm that I will tell the truth and nothing but the truth to the members of this committee today. Thank you.
Good morning to the committee. I'm Stephen Basset, Executive Director of Paradigm Research Group and an activist. In November of 2011, the White House issued a statement, formal written statement, through their Office of Science and Technology Policy that can be found on the internet quite easily. This statement had 3 sentences. 1, I paraphrase, there is no evidence whatsoever of any life outside of our planet, or that any life outside our planet has contacted or engaged the human race. And thirdly, that the United States government, there is no credible information that it has been hiding any information about that from the American people. With all due respect to the White House and to the President, this statement is remarkable for 3 reasons. 1, it is false. 2, it is indefensibly false. But 3, and this is where it's very important, it is the first time in history that the executive branch has put its position on this matter in writing. What is going to take place this week, we hope, is that a portion of the massive amount of evidence confirming the alternative to that statement, that we are in fact being engaged, is going to be presented to the American people, presented to the political media, to the Congress up the street for their consideration. Comparison between what is shown here and the White House's position will prompt the political media to begin to go into investigation mode, not simply to record what is going on. We also hope that the Congress, which has not held a hearing on this subject since 1968, will consider this issue worthy of hearings within the House and Senate. And I can assure the House and the Senate that for every witness that appears here this week, there is 5 more behind them, and then 5 more behind them. Hundreds of individuals, many serving in our government, serving in our military, including with top security clearances, prepared to go before Congress and testify to the kinds of evidence you'll hear this week, which confirms what Edgar Mitchell said. We are not alone in the universe. We are being engaged now. The government, for national security reasons, withheld that from us during the Cold War, but the Cold War is over, and now it's time to move forward. Thank you very much.
From General Robert B. Landry, Air Force aide to President Harry S. Truman. Landry says, I was called one afternoon in 1948 to come to the Oval Office. The President wanted to see me. I was directed to report quarterly to the President after consulting with Central Intelligence people as to whether or not any UFO incidents received by them could be considered as having any strategic threatening implications. Landry went on to say that he continued to brief President Truman in conjunction with the CIA quarterly for the rest of the Truman presidency. That's no less than 16 briefings. We might want to know why a man as busy as President Truman was, why he would take the time out of his schedule to have so many meetings about UFOs. And yet we have no official transcript or record of those briefings. This is a statement from a top secret 1948 Air Force intelligence report called Analysis of Flying Object Incidents in the U.S. Quote, the frequency of reported sightings, the similarity in many of the characteristics attributed to the observed objects, and the quality of observers considered as a whole support the contention that some type of flying object has been observed. The origin of the devices is not ascertainable. Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about UFOs, but through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense. Now, how much clearer a statement should responsible citizens, academicians, media, and political leadership require before demanding to get some reasonable answers as to what is going on behind the scenes in relation to the phenomenon? It is the problem of a political system in which the wheels have fallen off the machine. It is imperative, in the name of science and responsible public policy, that we get those wheels back on and begin a genuine, open investigation of this phenomenon. We demand and deserve answers from responsible officials who ought to be in the know. And if they're not in the know, we all need to investigate and find out just who is. Thank you.
My name is Grant Cameron. I'm a private investigator. For the past 38 years, I have attempted to focus on what the highest levels of the U.S. government, military, and intelligence agencies know about the UFO phenomenon. I'm the director of the President's UFO website. As Steve Basset mentioned, the Obama administration has come out with an official statement stating there is no ET evidence for an interaction with ETs, and there is no cover-up. What I would like to do, based on my years of research, is present a few pieces of evidence which show that this statement, written by a low-level White House staffer, is ill-informed and not true. Mr. Dolan pointed out that President Truman had been briefed for 5 years orally on the subject of UFOs. That does not appear in the official record. I'd like to add that Truman on video does make a statement stating, yes, we discussed it at every conference we had with the military. There were always things like that going on, flying saucers and other such things. Only 3 years after shutting down their program, the U.S. Air Force, at the direction of the Secretary of the Air Force, contacted 2 documentary film producers who signed an official film contract at the Pentagon to do a documentary on UFOs. They were provided with a number of films and pictures, including a film of extraterrestrials landing at Holloman Air Force Base, of which they used 8 seconds in the final production. They were given another film marked Top Secret that was never returned and is still in their possession. The documentary was funded with $250,000, and they were asked not to source the funder of the money in the credits. A CIA agent was present through the entire production, and as Linda Howe can testify, she saw a letter to one of the producers from President Richard Nixon thanking him for his cooperation on the project. Former Senator Barry Goldwater wrote extensively on UFOs, such as in 1975 when he wrote about his friend General Curtis LeMay, who refused him access in 1964 to the Blue Room at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where alien hardware and bodies were rumored to have been held. Goldwater wrote, "I made an effort to find out what was in that building at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I was understandably denied this request. It is still classified above top secret." As chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Goldwater continued to answer UFO letters, stating in one letter, "This thing has gotten so highly classified, it is impossible to get anything on it." In another letter, Goldwater wrote, "I have no idea who controls the flow of need to know because, frankly, I was told in such an emphatic way that it was none of my business that I've never tried to make it my business since." And finally, Goldwater wrote, "I have been interested in this subject for a long time, and I know that whatever the Air Force has on the subject is going to remain highly classified." Those waiting for the president to stand up and say ETs are here should know that that event occurred on June the 27th, 1981. Steven Spielberg stated that after the screening of E.T. the Extraterrestrial in the White House Theater, Reagan quote, just stood up and looked around the room, almost like he was doing a head count. And he said, "I want to thank you for bringing E.T. to the White House. We really enjoyed your movie." And then he looked around the room and he said, "And there are a number of people in this room who know that everything on that screen is absolutely true."
Of a tremendous effort, a tremendous campaign that's been going on both inside and outside of government as well. Their goal is the goal of their owners, the people who are running this operation, which is power, money, and control. Those are their goals. Control of ufology, of the theme of UFOs, and everything that has to do surrounding UFOs. That is what it is. They are hoping to take over the technology that they're getting ready to disperse over humanity in a democratic fashion. They're trying to make it free. They're trying to make it available to everyone. And they're hoping to grab this technology and corporatize it. And they're hoping they'll be able to do that through control of the Tic Tacs and all of these super weapons that are being operated by black parts of the government. And also power. They want to get ultimate power because they are trying to drive us towards, herd us, H-E-R-D, herd us towards something known as fake alien invasion. The Air Force, the United States Air Force, has been handling UFO cases since 1947.
Now it seems they're kind of handing it over to the Navy a little bit.
Exactly. And now, as I've investigated this matter, I have looked into these Tic Tac videos and seen how these things have nothing to do with anything extraterrestrial. Absolutely not. These are testing of top secret weapons. That's what they are. That's why in 2004, when they were getting ready to test these things, they needed someplace secure, someplace protected from surveillance, someplace that was absolutely secure. And so they decided to do it in the bosom of the Nimitz carrier group, the largest, most dangerous battalion group in the world. And that's what they did. The Nimitz was a part of that experiment. They were providing security for that. They were not suddenly surprised by a bunch of UFOs and had to check them out and so forth. You know, Navy personnel, I'm sure, does believe that's what really happened. But if you look at it objectively and you look at it as an investigator, a lot of things don't add up. Like the fact that the Nimitz in 2004, when they came across all the Tic Tacs, the Nimitz did not at any time go to general quarters. Never. You know, general quarters is the one thing Navy men don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that during their career. It means, hey, we could be going to war right now. And that'll tighten you up real fast. And so, but that never happened. And the reason that never happened was because the commander of the Nimitz knew that this was just an experimentation of super weapons. This has to do a great deal with what is going on with both real disclosure and also partial or fake disclosure, which is what I believe this entire campaign has to do with. This all actually started in December 2017 when the New York Times published articles revealing a secretive study within the Pentagon known as the ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Now, this was a top secret, supposedly. This was a top secret program. There was no way the New York Times should have had this information. And even less, there was no way they should have revealed it. And yet they did. So Area 51 is a place where supposedly they were dealing with UFOs and UFO technology. But I would posit that what they are really doing is converting technology, reverse engineering technology, so that man-made weapons are able to be created with anti-gravity technology, disruption of gravity technology, and I am positing that call, the subject of that call, and what went on in that call, is being continued today with this massive psychological operation, which is the Great UFO Fear Campaign, which is what we're talking about with the Tic Tacs, and all the people surrounding the Tic Tacs, which is a tremendous amount of people